I open my eyes. Confused, I look around. The lights are so bright. The room is white. Machines beep and whir in the background. A stranger is leaning over me. Where am I? What is happening? I try to push back the blanket with my arm, but it does not want to move. I attempt to speak, but the only sounds I make are slurred. Finally, the stranger looks at me. Understanding dawns on her face. It strikes me then that I am in hospital. It will be okay, Rebecca, she says as she pats my leg. Exhausted, my eyes close. I cannot process what's going on. Perhaps this nightmare will be over soon. Next door, in a small stuffy conference room around a crowded table, my family anxiously wait for the team of specialists to give their verdict. Multiple evaluations have been conducted. No hope is the verdict. Rebecca will not recover. Rebecca will never function independently again. My mum, my sister, and my best friend dissolve into a puddle of tears. My family are given information on having me admitted to a nursing home for permanent 24-hour care. Fed up, my dad stands and points at the specialist. You do not know my daughter, he yells, and storms out, dragging the rest of my inconsolable family with him. Have you ever had that moment when you want to give up? Crawling into a dark hole to disappear seems preferable than facing the obstacles that lay ahead. I was known as the dresses and heels girl. Every day was an opportunity to express my creativity. No one knew what outfit I would wear from day to day. My friends loved it. However, my career had gone in another direction. I worked in the resources industry. With my newfound love of welding and science, I planned to retrain as an engineer. In my spare time, I volunteered in animal rescue. My life was a typical snapshot of any other young woman in her late 20s. Unexpectedly, my health spiraled downwards. I had what felt like hundreds of blood tests. It seemed like I lived in a medical centre. No explanation was found. Back at the doctor's office, my employer gave me 3 months medical leave to rest and recuperate. So I decided to focus on healing. One day, as I was preparing to meet a friend, I was looking for my keys. I felt an overwhelming urge to lay down. A few minutes later, I violently began to shake. I thought I had a seizure. It was definitely time to seek medical help again. Back at the doctor's office, he decided to order an MRI to check for the worst case scenario, a brain tumour, just in case. I felt reassured and continued with my life as usual. During this time, my best friend got engaged and asked me to be her bridesmaid. The MRI itself was noisy and time-consuming. I passed the hour thinking of my wardrobe. The next morning, I received a phone call asking that I come in immediately. I felt a chill run down my spine. I was absolutely terrified. I asked my parents to come with me for support. As we sat in front of the doctor, I knew my life would be forever changed. I had a brain tumour. Urgent surgery was needed to save my life. The seizure I thought I had was a stroke, and there were many more to come. We say keep positive when faced with life's challenges. I thought chemotherapy would be the next treatment after brain surgery. My hair would grow back amazing, I'd lose weight, have the damage to my teeth fixed. In other words, looking fabulous in time for the wedding was what I had to look forward to. To say it was distressing is an understatement, but nothing prepared us for the outcome. Initially, surgery went well. Later that night, I suffered a massive stroke. My life hung in the balance. For weeks, I drifted in and out of consciousness in ICU while everyone discussed my fate. My next memory is 6 weeks later. My doctor explained what had happened and the rehabilitation journey that lay ahead. I was puzzled. How could this happen to a young person like me? One day, in rehab, over coffee, I told my best friend I could no longer be a bridesmaid. Her answer was a firm no. I thought, how could I walk down the aisle? I can't move. With that, she refused to hear another word. Who was I to argue with a blushing bride? The rehabilitation process was long, far longer than I expected. I thought my life would return to normal within a matter of days. It soon became clear how utterly mistaken I was. I had to learn to manage the most simple of tasks, like brushing my teeth, all by myself. Every night, I'd cry myself to sleep. Positive Rebecca was nowhere to be found. I felt as though I was a liability. Thankfully, my family lifted me up when I could go on no longer. My dad was undaunted in his belief that I would improve. He would tell anyone who cared to listen that Rebecca would recover. But at night, the tears fell in silence. He would question himself over and over. Was remaining hopeful that I would improve the key to my success? Or had his positive attitude turned into a toxic behaviour that undermined the difficult journey that lay ahead? I returned home far earlier than predicted. Using a wheelchair, my hands shaking uncontrollably and my voice still slurred, the rehabilitation process continued. The next 3 years were grueling. Learning to walk, speak, read and write as an adult is an exercise in patience. Every gain followed the rule of 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. I remember so clearly the first time I stood in the shower. It shocks me still that I took something so small for granted. For months I'd shower with assistance in a shower chair, my arms lifted up and scrubbed, my stubbly hair massaged into a foamy lather. As the warm, beautiful water fell softly on my skin, I relished every moment. The tears fell down my face, and I knew then that everything would be okay. Months later, I flew to Queensland as part of my best friend's bridal party. I managed to walk down the aisle using no mobility aids, but clinging to my partner groomsmen. At the reception, I was asked to give an impromptu speech. While still very self-conscious about my slur, I agreed. I briefly told the story of what had happened. I described how this wedding had been my motivation to learn to walk again. I thanked my best friend. Afterwards, I received my first standing ovation. The crowd clapped for what felt like hours. Later on, I was diagnosed with further brain tumours. These are inoperable but remain stable. Undaunted, I continued on with my rehabilitation journey, eventually regaining my driver's licence and completing tertiary studies. It is ingrained into our subconscious that remaining positive is the answer to any tragedy we face. While trying to comfort others, we remind them, and by extension ourselves, that there are many in the world who have it worse. When you are that person who has it worse, like me, You begin to realise those statements are incredibly destructive and toxic. So many people say to me, "But you have survived so much," as if that negates any further problems that happen in my life. Recognising the obstacles that lay ahead is not the same as accepting those obstacles cannot be overcome. The acknowledgement of these challenges gives us the mental clarity to successfully plan and action moving forward. As a whole, humanity is resilient. We thrive without happiness. We can learn to live with pain. Realistic optimism or hope can coexist with emotions such as grief, anger, or sadness. Remaining hopeful in a situation that seems hopeless is almost impossible, but not improbable. We do not need to experience trauma to effectively utilise the possibilities hope can bring. Hope is universal. Its beauty can be attributed to the fierceness of its power. Hope does not expire, nor does it run out. Remaining blindly optimistic is a socially acceptable form of self-sabotage. As much as we may try, we cannot avoid the diversity of life's experiences. However, we can apply the concept of hope to any circumstances we face. Have you ever had a traumatic incident that left your life forever changed? The person that looks back at you in the mirror is a stranger. Thinking back to the years gone by is the story of someone else. When I look at these two photos, I see two completely different women. I ask myself daily, do I hope to regain my old life, that of a student engineer with so many dreams of success? Or do I see my new life as more accomplished, having conquered the impossible? I'm not sure if I want to know the answer. Thank you.